Well, hello, welcome to another Legacy Talks. I always open it up the same way. I'm Angie. I'm on the board and chair of Legacy Business League. And Legacy Business League is a minority chamber of commerce where we established ourselves to bring information and resources to those who otherwise wouldn't have it because oftentimes we are underrepresented and don't have a seat at the table. And part of what we'd like to do is to network and to introduce faces to our members who may not know about these wonderful women who are here with us today. Ms. Desirae Duncan and Ms. Brandy McGill, they are with a local news media outlet, and I'm sure you've seen their faces. I am very honored to speak to them today. I did have the opportunity to work at WLOX Television in the sales department for 10 years, and I think that we do have a great group of people that who are really trying to be woke, for lack of a better term. And it is evidenced by the fact that Desirae was just promoted to Monday through Friday anchor, and the decision makers didn't have to do that. And Brandy is one of a long line of African American reporters. But there's still some growth in our community, and that's why Legacy Business League is needed, and that we want to continue to make sure that we have an impact and a voice. So I'm honored again to have you here today, and I'm just going to open it up by letting you introduce yourselves, and then we'll get right into talking about covering the news in such a, last year was definitely a tumultuous time for African American reporters, and just, I think I added reporting while Black, every day, and how the influence that you have in this industry. So let's start with you, Desirae. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been on the coast, where you went to school, how long you've been at WLOX.
All right. Well, I'm Desirae, as she said, and I'm glad to be a part of this. Glad to be able to be a voice in this. I'm from Elizabethtown, Kentucky, which is about an hour south of Louisville, Kentucky. I went to the University of Kentucky, and I've been on the coast for about 3 years now. And before coming here to the coast, I worked in Albany, Georgia, which is about 3 hours south of Atlanta. So glad to be here.
Fantastic, and we're glad to have you. Miss Brandy McGill, you are on mute. Yeah, there you go. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been on the coast, where you went to school.
All right. Well, as Miss Angie said, I'm Brandy McGill. I'm from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I went to North Forest High School. From there, I went to Jones County Junior College, also known as JCJC. And then from there, I went to the University of Southern Mississippi. I recently graduated in December of 2019. And since then, I've been here on the coast at WLOX for a year and 2 months now.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. And I'm just glad that you all chose to be here. Again, oftentimes young individuals will look at Mississippi for the history that we are known for. But I think when you get here, you learn that we definitely have some growing pains that we can continue to have to go through. But we are a hospitality state, and I hope that that you're enjoying your time here, and that you make it your home for a little while longer. So there are probably times when you are sent out on a story because of your skin color. I'm sure that the producers, take that into consideration, so that the subjects can be comfortable and obviously so you can reflect the story in an objective way, but maybe possibly have a subjective spin on it. So are there those times where you know that you're sent out on a news story because you're African American, and how do you handle those situations? Desirae, let's start with you.
There's definitely times where I'm sent out on stories because I am African American. I've noticed it even when I was growing up. We would notice that the Black reporters were usually sent to the west end of Louisville, which is the Black end of Louisville. And so I noticed that even growing up before I even got into journalism. So it's definitely a thing, but I think at the same time, it's not necessarily always a bad thing because, like you said, it is a way for us to reflect on it and have a little bit more of a subjective spin to it. I think sometimes people are a little bit more receptive when they see someone that looks like them coming in and asking questions, especially if it's after something that's harder to handle. we can come in and they see a face that looks like them, they're usually more likely to talk or speak or do an interview. So it's not necessarily always a bad thing, but it is something that I've definitely noticed.
Sure. Brandy, do you have that same experience, and how do you, is it positive, negative?
Well, kind of like what Desirae said. I mean, it's kind of a mixed with me. For the most part, I feel like deciding that who goes on a certain story, I feel like it's probably appropriate at certain times. But I say it's like a mixed emotion because oftentimes, I mean, I enjoy being a voice for the community. I enjoy being a voice for those who look like me. And I love going on stories, being that voice for people who look like me. But it becomes difficult when people who look like me shy away from me and don't connect. The whole point of me being there is to connect with you. So when people who look like me shy away and don't really want to talk, that's kind of disappointing. So that's when it comes a little difficult for me. So
Well, and I do understand that. And what did you say was the last thing you said?
I was saying, so it's really not, shine like on the newsroom, oh, they're sending me out because I'm Black. It's more so, okay, I'm going to be the voice for this Black community or this Black story. But then when people don't look like me and respond, it's kind of like,
yeah,
Yeah,
and that does happen, and I've seen it happen firsthand. And I've also, mentioned before that sometimes when we don't get people to represent their voice and their issues, then to be fair, one tries to go and grab, to me, sometimes it's like grab the first person that they see, and that person doesn't necessarily always reflect the community. And what I mean by that is that, there are some, limelight seekers who say, oh, there's the news, and they go and flag you down, and they're the ones who want to talk. But we really need people to, when Desirae and Brandy are on these stories, that we take the opportunity to really vocalize some of the issues that they're interested in, so they can really report objectively and make sure that we are well represented. So yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. When you have to cover stories like the state flag, for instance, or moving the Confederate monuments, how do you handle that emotionally, professionally? Brandy, we'll go with you.
Well, I'm going to say, honestly, stories like that, it's not hard for me to go in with my hard reporter hat on and not feel any type of feelings at all, because that's how it should be anyway. When you're a reporter, you shouldn't, get in your personal feelings about a story. So it's not difficult for me. I mean, I did have a bad experience covering a Confederate, flag story. I'm not going to go into detail, but the company and the station, they reacted and supported me well in that. So, I mean, I don't feel uncomfortable, because I just feel like I'm standing my ground, in a respectful way, and hearing the other side of the story from a different perspective.
Do you have any times when you were going to be assigned something and just felt like it's not appropriate, or that you felt like, hey guys, are you sure you want me there? I mean, do you have those type of discussions?
Oh yeah, like I mentioned, I had a bad experience at one of the flag rallies or flag protests by a particular group. And after that, that's when I would speak up for myself and let the managers know, okay, I don't feel comfortable covering this by myself. And for the most part, they've been supportive of that, and they try to send more than one person out after that.
Fantastic. Okay, Desirae, what about you? Have you had an opportunity to report on things that are very much a part of the culture in terms of the social injustice, or just socioeconomic issues that the news is really on top of covering, particularly when they're in tune to the community and or reflecting the national narrative? Have you had to have the opportunity to cover those type of stories, and like Brandy, how do you handle it emotionally and professionally?
Yes, I've had the opportunity to cover those types of stories. We've covered plenty of protests and rallies and things on the state flag, on the Confederate monuments. And I think, like Brandy said, it's easy to go in there and have your reporter hat on and to cover it objectively because that's how it should be. But at the same time, it's nice to be able to have a seat at the table to make sure that all sides are being represented and to be able to represent those sides that are angry about maybe the state flag, but also those that are happy about the state flag, and to be able to show why they're excited that it's changing and be able to represent both of those sides.
That makes sense. And that segues right into my next question. When I worked there, I had the pleasure of being on the editorial board. And at the time, the company that owned WLOX required that the station manager tape an editorial comment once a week. And I think it went once a day. It was a lot. For those that don't know, editorial comment allows you to kind of give your opinion. It allows you to be subjective, whereas most of the other time you're trying to be objective and just report the facts. And so I know that I would take the opportunity to give them ideas, some of which they use, some not, that really were geared toward diversity and inclusion. Have you had the opportunity to pitch stories? And if so, what kind that are very specific to, the African American culture that weren't necessarily, in the queue? And let's start with you, Brandy.
Excuse me if you hear something in the background.
And that's okay.
Mommy, look at my shirt.
Get on camera.
I see it. So yeah, sorry. Okay, so I would say plenty of times that I've pitched stories that I was actually proud of, per se, Black stories. So like when all the riots and everything were going on, surrounding George Floyd, it became like a economic protest. I want to say it was blackout, and I made sure that was something that we included in our coverage. Many of times when you pitch stories like that, you have to put more of a push on it to do it. You have to put more effort yourself versus everything already being lined out for you in the planner. But I haven't been shied away from to cover certain things like that. And also as far as like when Jackson State University, they performed ahead of the inauguration, I did that story. I did my own pulls and ties, connecting people, making it local here in South Mississippi. Like I said, you have to put additional effort in it because it's something that you're putting forth effort to cover. But I mean, it's totally worth it.
I think that's great. And I do see the effort even in some of the items that you've approached me about recently, because obviously Black History Month is a time that people are narrowly focused on African American history. And, there's a debate on whether or not we should get rid of Black History Month, because Black history is American history. And oftentimes it's not introduced in, the school books, it's not introduced in textbooks, school books, textbooks, same thing. And it's just not part of our culture to teach it. So there should be more of a concerted effort rather than just hyper focusing on it in 1 month and then kind of forgetting about it throughout the year. I'm kind of torn between it because I think I've utilized a lot of my platforms, this one as an example, to educate people and people who don't look like us. And I have had folks come back to me, after several years and say, I do see what you're talking about, after they began to understand the importance of highlighting our culture and heritage, and then saw how it was kind of cut out from the conversation for the rest of the year. They are advocates now for ensuring that, the cultural sensitivity, the racial bias conversations, the education around the contributions of African Americans on the coast and, throughout the world and throughout history. I think we're creating ambassadors during this time. But I do think that needs to be more of an effort just to have us represented, period, and around the table. And I think that unfortunately it took something like George Floyd to open a lot of people's eyes, and that would not have normally had an emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So both of you have worn natural hair on air. Actually, obviously, Desirae has braids in now. And tell us a little bit about that experience. I mean, and the reason I'm saying that is because obviously there is historically, there have been standards put on women in general about weight and the way we look and such. And then with people of color with different grade of hair, they want us to look a certain way. And there, so much so that is the Crown Act. Is that what it's called? The Crown Act. And that was enacted within the last 2 years. That really, made it illegal to discriminate against someone who wanted to wear their hair in a natural way. And they're still on the books in schools and some other areas that teachers can tell a child that they have to go home or they have to cut their hair because it's in the school book. So we're still dealing with that. What looks acceptable and such. So tell us about your story and why you made the choice to wear braids on air. Or you started with natural, right?
Yes, I started with natural, and I think my choice just came from, I just get tired of my hair easily. So it's just the way that I express myself, I guess, is changing my hair. And people say my hair changes a lot on air, and it does. And I'm okay with that though. But yeah, I just got tired of having to straighten my hair. I actually tried to go natural twice and transition from relaxed hair. And the first time I was too scared to approach my news director and ask her if I could switch to natural hair. And I actually went back to relaxed hair because I was scared. And then the second time I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for real. So I asked my news director if I could switch to wearing natural hair, and shout out to Brad for knowing that hair doesn't affect a person's how professional they are. So I'm glad to work at a news station that's accepting of that. And I just wanted to be able to do something different. And so even though I switch back to wigs sometimes and switch back to straight hair, I still love wearing my natural hair, and I love wearing braids like I am now because it's easier.
It is easy.
So much easier when you just have braids in. So
yeah,
it's just making it nice to do.
I think that sometimes it just comes down to that we don't necessarily have to be making a statement in as much as it's easier to take care of. But in the event you did want to make a statement and just be yourself, I think that's great that you're not getting pushback from your management or the community, because I just recently I read a Facebook post with one of your counterparts, Carrie Duncan. She just gets torn up about what she's wearing, and I don't understand how people feel so free to be able to reach out and just give their opinion in such a way. So I just wanted to know how you handle that. Brandy, any feedback on hair and how an image and upholding that?
Well, it starts in school, I would want to say, because you're taught in school, okay, you're going to have to look this way when you're recording your reel, which is basically like a digital resume. They're like, okay, you have to stick to one hairstyle. So that's when it truly starts, is in school. So I don't know how, so it starts in school. So I actually started out with my natural hair, but I was flattering it all the time because I got in my head that that's how I had to wear my hair from school once again. So eventually I started like bridging over to like weaves and
Hello.
and then eventually I got braids because at the time a reporter, she was there, and then Desirae, she had braids, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna join the braid party. And I didn't ask Brad, and when he saw it, he was just like, nice hair. So I didn't get any bad backlash about that from my station. As far as curly hair naturally, it was kind of a mistake me wearing that on air. This is Hurricane city around here, so I couldn't get in my room. My extensions were trapped. So the next day I was on the air with my curly hair. I mean, I felt uncomfortable, not because I don't like my hair, but I'm like, this is not what I'm used to. I mean, it's just like Desirae said, it's easier to wear braids or weaves or anything like that. But I'm also glad I'm at a station where I guess it really doesn't matter. You can be yourself.
Fantastic. Well, that, you talked about starting in school and how you started off. Tell me, Desirae, what inspired you to get into journalism? And is it something that you would suggest that someone who is trying to determine what they want their career to be, is it something that you would recommend? And if so, what advice would you give to them?
I got started in journalism when I was in middle school, and I was our school's weather girl. And I just liked being able to interact with the community, which of course was my school at that time. I just liked being able to interact with them. So I started doing things related to journalism throughout school, even started a school newspaper and did the morning announcements, and just continued on that path and went to school, did journalism. So that's kind of how I got started in it and what inspired me to become a journalist. And for those who are considering being one, I would have to say, make sure that you are sure that you want to be a journalist, because it is not something that you can go into half-hearted. You have to definitely have your full heart in there. You have to be able to, come up with story ideas, and you're working long hours. You're doing a lot of different things at once and wearing a lot of different hats. So it's definitely something that you have to have your whole heart in and want to do wholeheartedly. So, any advice I would give to people is to not give up if you do decide to go down this path, because you definitely have to make sure that this is something you want to do. So just don't give up. No matter what comes your way, just keep pushing forward, and I promise it'll be worth it in the end.
Fantastic. Brandy?
It makes me hard to even say anything after that. I feel like it's an amazing field to go into. Like Desirae said, it can get difficult sometimes, but you have to put in the work for it and don't give up. But I would say for many people, growing up, you hear, oh, when you get to college, you're going to change your major 100 times. You don't know what you want to do yet. But honestly, I knew very early on that I wanted to be in news. I mean, I grew up watching Oprah and my local news station at the time, so with my grandma. So I would say it's never too early to start. I started telling stories in high school. It was the bare minimum basic storytelling, but growing my way up into college, I progressed, and then I learned this lot here at my station. So it's never too early to start. When you get in college, don't wait until your junior, senior year to, get familiar with the camera and get in front of the camera. And speaking of in front of the camera, it's lovely, but this job is not all glitz and glam. I mean, you may see, our social media posts, the makeup, the dresses, but it's not all glitz and glam, because it's many days that I've cried, not because of just having a bad day, but if I can't get people to talk to me, I'm like, okay, I don't need to go back to the station with nothing. Or if I'm hours waiting in trying to get a story and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So, I mean, it's difficult days. Don't think it's just all, being cute and being on TV. It's not all that. You really have, like Desirae said, you have to have your heart in it. You have to be dedicated.
And I don't think people really understand the pressure in terms of, like, you can wake up one day thinking that you're going to cover one thing, and then you get after that 9 o'clock meeting, okay, y'all are going here, here, and here, and then and you have to nowadays take the camera, tape it, edit it, write the story, and then translate it or up to video, and then get it over to the news desk, and then it's the whole digital component. So it's no joke. But what I've always told my journalist friends is that your transferable skills are amazing. I mean, being able to write and shoot and edit, not everybody can do that. So it kudos, and that is really why y'all are called multimedia journalists, because you affect so many platforms. So is there anything that y'all are working on now that you want to share? Because again, oftentimes, if not necessarily that there's a lack of focus, but you bring your experiences, your life experiences, you pitch editorial information content to your folks. Anything specific to the African American community, and if not, just something that we might be interested in. Any projects that you have on the horizon, Desirae?
Nothing that I have specifically set in stone right now, but I'm really wanting to work on a piece about hair and how it impacts the African American community. I think that's something a lot of people don't know about. And being someone who does wear their natural hair on air and wears braids on air, I think it would be really interesting to present that story from that perspective. So,
Excellent. Brandy?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Hey.
Hey!
Kind of like what Desirae said, I was interested in doing a story more so on the culture side of like protective styles and brands,
Hello.
and also going into how like the Army and the Air Force. Sorry,
Hey!
hold on. Say hi, RJ.
Yeah, there we go.
Hello.
Well, hello. Oh, see? Oh my goodness.
Okay.
It's awesome. So we got you.
So yeah, I was trying to work on like a piece dealing with
Look at
hair
my mouth.
and actually incorporate how different organizations and groups are starting to change like the hair rules. You can wear braids now in the military, certain branches and different things like that. So that's a story that I was interested in. And also I wanted to do a story about like the D9 community, even if it's not a Black history story. But I mean, I'm not a part of a sorority, but it always fascinates me how, you know, outside of the strolling and different things like that, it's a community driven effort. And I wanted to do a story and highlight them in a positive way that way.
I think that's fantastic. And because I know that we have very active community on the coast that are doing some great things. I'm not Greek either, but I'm trying to tag along when they have their community service and parties and events and things like that. So that I think that's going to be an awesome subject. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that if we want to talk about, or one thing I want to comment on. I was at a organizational meeting yesterday, a couple of days ago, and they were commenting on what one of your Caucasian counterparts said as it pertained to a news story about someone suing the president over the Capitol situation, and they, you know, mistakenly said NCAA rather than NAACP, and oftentimes whether it's deliberate or just habit, when they talk about, you know, President Trump, but they say President Trump, and then when they talk about President Obama, they just say Obama. And by they, I mean sometimes the news anchors do that. I don't know if it's written in, you know, to the script or whatever. And I brought it to the attention of the person that said in NCAA rather than NAACP, and she was, you know, mortified that she'd made that mistake. And even when I heard the concept and heard it, I said, you know, maybe she got tongue tied again, because I know, you know, intimately some of the people that you work with. But do you have the opportunity in the event you see things like that happening? Again, we talked about you being around the table, but have you had to do that, you know, to say, don't use that word, or, you know, and how do you handle that? And because, you know, the reporting while Black piece of it is what I, you know, want to hone in on and, you know, finish up with, and that you do have a say, or do you feel like you have a say? And is it safe to say you have a say? Because Brad might watch this, even though, you know. So Brandy.
I would say yes, we do have a say, but that really comes in with the producer. Typically, being a reporter, anchor, you don't really go through the show and read what the anchor is going to read unless you're either the anchor or the producer. So that's kind of out of our limits there. But as far as our particular story and as far as the intro, I mean, we do have a say so when it comes to that. So for example, when I use Black, I let Natalie know, like, it's safe to say Black. I don't always have to say African American. I feel like if I feel comfortable saying it, it's okay.
And Natalie's our senior producer.
Yes.
And is it Desirae? Have you been in a situation where someone used a word or phrase or something, you're like, you may not want to do that, That's not how we refer to ourselves, or that's not, does that ever happen to you?
There's been cases where I've noticed, like when certain crimes happen that involve Black people, they'll refer to them as thugs or something like that. And I'm like, oh, that makes me feel a little uncomfortable. So yeah, there are times where we have to sometimes be that voice and make sure that we have a say around the table about how people are referring and using what kind of words they're using.
Yeah. And you may or may not. And again, some of this is the unconscious bias. Some of this is just habit from our culture. And that what I've noticed is oftentimes if there is a Black suspect, they'll put the mugshot up. And if they're white, they just say white or don't say anything at all. So it's, there's a Black person with a t-shirt, whatever, and then sometimes it's relevant, sometimes it's not. So, and that's nationally, that's just part of the journalistic culture. And I've just never really understood that, unless that person, there's an APB out on them and you have to give their skin color and what they're wearing, a red jumpsuit. I'm not really sure why it matters, about the person's skin color when reporting, a murder or something like that. But that's just a side note. And I did tell them that when I was on the editorial board, and that's not quite changed. So, but I think it's getting a little better. But I do appreciate everything that y'all are doing. Let's, as we wind down, I just want to ask you, what inspires you? What do you do for fun? How do you de-stress with such a high energy and high pressure job? Desirae?
I really love taking pictures is what I like to do on the side. So I'll just go out and go to different parks, nature parks and whatnot, and just take pictures of different bugs and flowers and stuff. It's just relaxing to me to be able to take photos. And then of course, stuff like reading and writing and just getting out my feelings. So just like to do a lot of different things for fun.
And why is that's important? Yes. I like to always, tell people that not everybody has a work-life balance, honestly. I mean, that's, I think, probably the biggest question that I get is, how do you balance work and life? And I'm like, I don't know that I do. I mean, I love to work. I'm a workaholic. And it's sometimes it's what I do to de-stress. And I know that people don't want to hear that. But it is important, to take that time to yourself. So I'm glad to hear that you do that with the photos and just getting out in nature. So Brandy, you have your hands full with your little one. Yeah, I don't know that you're gonna be able to find a balance for a while now.
Yeah, it's difficult, but again, it's worth it when I do have free time. So for instance, if he's at school, I enjoy to exercise. I like working out. I enjoy just going on walks and different things like that. And I also enjoy eating. And on my free time, when I do have the time to actually get away from work, I enjoy reading. And I'm starting to read Becoming by Michelle Obama. So
Oh yeah.
be motivated. I love to watch women who look like me striving and doing really great. So.
Yes. Is there anything that we can do to help you in your endeavors, personally and professionally? Again, this is a network of members that tune in to this. When we have networking events, they attend. We're starting a grant where we're going to be have wraparound services, coaching and mentorship. And then we have professionals who aren't small business owners who just want to hear about professional development. So is it giving you stories? Like how can we be engaged? We'll stay with you, Brandy.
I mean, yeah, it may sound cliche, but please, please, please reach out to me if you have a story idea or something is going on, because there's no way you expect us to know every single thing, so please email me. That would be great. And I'll always contact you all back. So I would really enjoy if you did that.
And Desirae, last word.
Like Brandy said, just make sure that you're reaching out to us and letting us know any stories that are going on, because a lot of times people say, well, the news didn't cover this, or the news doesn't cover any good stories, and it's because sometimes we just didn't know about it. So if you just let us know, then we can cover it and we can share that story, and we would usually love to share that story. So just make sure you reach out to us and let us know.
And what's the best way to do that?
Facebook or email, either way. Even if you have my work cell phone number, you can even contact me that way. Just really any way that you can contact me.
Okay, because I think that your email address and contact information is on the website too, under About Us, and then Talent, and then it's there too. So I think that's great advice. Well, I do appreciate you ladies, and I'm so very proud of you. So good to know you, and I'm so glad that you participated in this today. And I hope that those who have listened will take action when they're out and about and they want to cover a story. Please take the opportunity to talk to them and use that as a platform to be able to get our story out, and so that we can continue to have a voice in the community. So I guess I'll see you Monday through Friday, Desirae. Brandy, I also see you Monday through Friday, and you're on the weekends too. So y'all are hardworking women. And so we'll be touching base with you again in the future. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. All right. Talk to you later.